Hi there, welcome to our tutorial series on YouTube. And if this is your first time of coming across our videos, please note that this video is brought to you by O3 Schools JAMB app. And O3 Schools JAMB app is simply an app designed for students. It contains all the necessary things they will need for their examinations. So if you are yet to have that app, please download from Play Store and activate the app so you can have access to all the features that the app has to offer. So for our today's class, our topic is the supremacy of God. As it is documented in 1 Kings from chapter 16 through to 19. So we want to examine the supremacy of God in 1 Kings chapter 16 to 19. God is supreme, and his supremacy was exhibited during the religious tension in Israel when Ahab was king. So Ahab was king of Israel at that time. While Elijah was the prophet. Ahab did evil in God's sight. First, he married Jezebel, the princess of the Sidonians. God had already asked the Israelites not to marry from, outside the tribe, because these women would lead them to other gods with a small g now. So Ahab married from Sidon, married Jezebel, the princess of the Sidonians, and he did not worship God anymore. He worshipped Baal. He even built a temple to Baal and raised an altar. Elijah, the prophet at that time, declared drought on Israel. He then went and hid himself by the brook Cherith. There, God sent ravens to feed Elijah, and he drank from the brook. When the brook dried up, God asked him to go to Zarephath, where he had commanded a widow to feed Elijah. Now, we'll now look at the context on Mount Carmel. The contest that took place on Mount Carmel. So after a while, God asked Elijah to present himself to Ahab so that the drought could be ended. Now, Ahab had been searching for Elijah because there was great famine in the land. Ahab and his servant Obadiah was in charge of Ahab's household, but he feared God. He even hid 100 prophets in a cave when Jezebel persecuted the prophets of God. So Ahab and Obadiah divided the land in search of grasses to feed their animals. One would go east and the other would go west. Now, while Obadiah was in his search, he ran into Elijah, and Elijah asked him to tell Ahab that he had come to see him. At first, Obadiah was scared because he knew if Elijah was not there after he had told Ahab, that could lead to his death. But Elijah assured him that he was going to see Ahab this time. So Obadiah told Ahab, and Ahab met Elijah. Elijah then told Ahab to come with all his prophets of Baal, totaling 450. 450 prophets of Baal. Prophets of Baal. Elijah asked Ahab to come with all of his prophets for a challenge on Mount Carmel in the presence of all of Israel. Ahab gathered the children of Israel and his prophets of Baal to Mount Carmel to meet Elijah. There, Elijah proposed that they should prepare a bull to offer a sacrifice, but there will be no fire under it. So each of them will call their god. So prophets of Baal will call to their god Baal. Elijah will call to his own god. Whichever god sent fire first was supreme. And they all agreed, and the prophets of Baal started first. They prepared their bull, laid it on the wood and all of that, and they started calling on their god Baal. They cried from morning till noon, from noon till night, but there was no answer. They cut themselves, crying aloud and all of that. But still, there was no answer from their god Baal. When it got to the turn of Elijah, Elijah took 12 stones, each stone representing a tribe of Israel, and he made or set up an altar. And then he prepared his bowl, laid it on the altar, and asked that 4 water pots of water be poured on the wood 3 times. Then he cried aloud to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He asked God to show everybody that God sent him to bring the people of Israel back to God, to turn their ways from the idolatry, from worshiping idols, to back to God that delivered their ancestors from Egypt. And God sent fire that consumed Elijah's sacrifice. The people of Israel believed in God and they seized the prophets of Baal. Elijah executed the prophets of Baal and he returned to Mount Carmel. There he prayed and God sent rain. Now, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, including killing all the prophets of Baal. Jezebel sent a message to Elijah threatening to kill him. Elijah fled to Beersheba. There in the wilderness, he asked God to take his life, but instead God sent an angel to feed him twice, and that food lasted him for 40 days and 40 nights on his way to Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. There, God asked him to anoint Hazael, king of Syria, Jehu, king of Israel, and Elisha as his replacement. Prophet to replace Elijah. So we see that the contest on Mount Carmel proved the supremacy of God, proved that God is supreme. Now to the O3 Schools JAMB app to check for questions that have been asked on this topic previously. So here's a question from 2001. We have, "It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers." This prayer above was said by Elijah when he A. ran out of food, B. was threatened by Jezebel, C. learned that Ahab was looking for him, D. had no water to drink at the brook Cherith. The answer is B, when he was threatened by Jezebel, after Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, mostly killing the prophets of Baal after the contest on Mount Carmel. Jezebel threatened to kill Elijah, and Elijah escaped and prayed to God to take away his life. So the answer is B, was threatened by Jezebel. Another question from 2014 says, Elijah killed 450 prophets of Baal on the Mount Carmel after God had shown his A, holiness, B, omnipresence, C, supremacy, D, righteousness, after God had shown his supremacy over all other gods. So the answer is C, supremacy. We also have the contest on Mount Carmel was to prove that A, Baal was the God of Israel, B, Baal controlled nature, C, God was supreme to another God, D, Israel had faith in God, C, it was to prove that God was supreme to any other God. Lastly, let's also look at when Elijah escaped to the brook Cherith, he was fed by A, angels, B, ravens, C, sparrows, D, doves. When Elijah escaped to the brook Cherith, God asked ravens. God sent ravens to feed Elijah, so he was fed by ravens. The correct option there is C. Take note, there are many more questions that you can have access to when you download the O3 Schools JAMB app. So waste no more time, head to Play Store now and download your app.